If you clicked on this, you're probably wondering one very specific thing. Can you actually live on a boat in Seattle or anywhere in the PNW full-time, legally, without it turning into a complete disaster? And the answer is yes. People are doing it right now. But the real answer is a lot more fun than that, because living on a boat in Seattle is not a clever life hack. It's not some sort of loophole. It's not a magical cheat code where you dodge rent and sip coffee while bald eagles fly overhead. It's a system. And like all systems, it works beautifully right up until you don't understand how it works. So let's start with the part everybody gets wrong. It's not the boat. You can go buy a perfectly livable 35-foot sailboat this afternoon for the price of a used pickup truck. That's not the problem. There's lots of boats around the PNW. The problem is, where do you put it? Because in Washington state, marinas don't just let everyone move onto a boat. Most of them cap liveaboards at around 10% of their slips. So if your marina that you find has 1,000 boats, only 100 people are actually allowed to live on board, which means you're not just buying a boat, you're applying for a seat. And the stadium's already full. There's already a wait list, and those wait lists are real, not a couple weeks. We're talking months, sometimes over a year, depending on the size of your boat and where you want to end up living. And just to make it even more interesting, some marinas don't allow liveaboards at all. You can rent a slip from them, you can own a boat, you just can't live on it. So before we even talk about money, the first question is, can you actually get in? Now, let's say you can. This is where you start to look at things as more attractive again, because compared to Seattle housing, boats do look pretty cheap. A 30-foot slip might run you about $600 a month. A 40-foot slip, call it $900 to $1,000. Bigger boats climb from there. Then you usually have to add a liveaboard fee. This is something marinas charge, $150 to up around $400 depending on the marina. Then add electricity, then add internet, because marina Wi-Fi is aspirational at best. So at this point you're sitting somewhere around $1,200 a month to a little more, and you're thinking, wow, I've beaten the system. No, you haven't even met the system yet, because now we get to do maintenance. And this is where boats stop being romantic and start being a bit more mechanical. A boat is not a house. A house just sits there. A boat is constantly moving and flexing and aging and corroding, quietly plotting against you. Even just tied to the dock, it's under load. Wind and wake and tides, everything is working on it all the time. So every system on the boat is either being maintained or it's slowly falling apart. Bottom paint every couple years, zincs disappearing like they're on a diet, pumps and wiring and fuses and plumbing, through hulls, which, just as a reminder, are literal holes in your boat that lead directly to the ocean. And the fun part is, failures don't show up politely. They show up at 2 a.m., usually wet and expensive. So the rule of thumb you'll hear across the industry is about 10% of the boat's value per year in maintenance. Sometimes you'll beat that stat. Sometimes you absolutely won't. When you average that out monthly, you're adding another $200 to $800. So now your cheap housing lands somewhere between $1,500 and $2,500 a month, which is still cheaper than Seattle rent, but now comes with responsibilities that your landlord would usually handle. At this point, we haven't even talked about the thing that defines boat life in the Pacific Northwest, and that thing is moisture. Not storms and not waves, not dramatic ocean scenes. Moisture. Seattle doesn't hit you with extremes, it just slowly soaks into everything. And when you live on a boat, that moisture moves inside. Warm air hits the cold hull and suddenly your boat's making water on the inside. Your windows drip, the walls sweat, lockers feel like a rainforest. You wake up in the morning and your house has produced water overnight. So now you're running dehumidifiers constantly. You've got heaters going. You're managing airflow like you're running a small climate control experiment. Because if you don't, mold is going to move in, and mold doesn't want to pay rent. Now add cold into that equation, not brutal cold, but persistent cold. And because your house is basically a fiberglass shell floating in cold water, it loses all its heat fast. So now we're heating not just for comfort, but for survival on a boat. Meanwhile, outside your floating science experiment is one of the best cruising grounds in the world, Puget Sound, San Juan Islands. Protected waters and endless anchorages, absolutely stunning. But again, systems. The currents can rip through the narrow passages at several knots. You don't go when you want to go. You go when the water says you can go. The water is cold enough that falling in is not refreshing. It's a pretty big problem. And then there are the logs. Actual logs, full-on trees, just drifting around, waiting for you to not be paying attention. On top of that, you've got whale regulations, environmental rules. And this is not the Wild West. You're operating in a managed environment. So yes, the freedom is pretty real, but it's not careless freedom. Now, back at the dock, life gets a little more intentional. Water doesn't just come out of a tap forever. You have to fill your tanks. Waste doesn't disappear. You have to deal with it. Laundry, usually not on the boat. Groceries, you carry them down the dock like some kind of pack mule. None of this is very hard, but it's all constant. And then there's space. A 40-foot boat sounds big, but it's not. It's a beautifully efficient, aggressively limited space where every single thing that you own has to justify its existence. Think minimalism. You don't accumulate stuff, you curate it. For some people, that's incredibly freeing, and I'm definitely one of those people. Less is more. For others, this is where they tap out. Now, there are people doing this successfully right now. Michael and Ree were featured in Seattle Times recently, and they're a great example. They didn't move onto a boat because it was quirky or fun. They did it because housing costs pushed them there. And what they found is exactly what we've been talking about. Limited space, constant maintenance, and the real challenge that just getting a legal place to live on the water in the first place can be very difficult. But they've stayed, not because it's easy, but because it works for them. And that's a pattern you see over and over again. And then, just when you think you understand the system, there's another version of it entirely, the slipless version some people choose. And this is where people would skip a marina entirely, no permanent home, the boat keeps moving. Anchorages and mooring balls, state parks, short-term docks. The whole Puget Sound becomes their neighborhood. And on paper, it looks brilliant. State park mooring permits there are only about $5 per foot per year. Mooring buoys, around $12 a night. Way cheaper than $60 marina nights. Add in a yacht club membership and suddenly you've got access to docks and showers and power, sometimes saving hundreds a month. And it sounds like you've cracked the code again, but you haven't escaped the system. You've just moved on board. Because now your boat has to be self-sufficient. Big battery banks, inverters running constantly, hundreds of amp hours per day, and in winter, probably a generator every day. Water, heat, waste, all handled on board. No backup, no dock to plug into. So now instead of being a guy living on a boat, you're basically running a small floating power station that you also sleep in. Living in a marina simplifies your systems but limits your freedom. Living without a slip gives you freedom, but turns your boat into a machine that has to work perfectly most of the time. Same system, different pressure points. And when you step back and look at all of it, living on a boat in Seattle is not a loophole, it's not a hack. It's a trade. You're trading space and convenience. You take on maintenance and moisture and systems and constraints. And in return, you get access to one of the most incredible places in the world to keep a boat, and a way of living that feels a lot more connected to what's actually going on around you. So can you live on a boat in Seattle? Yes. The real question is, are you willing to operate in the system that makes it possible? Because if you are, it works. If you're not, it falls apart fast. And that's the real answer. If you're interested in more on this topic, we have a YouTube playlist all about living aboard, where we also feature the video about living on board in New York and the one about living on board in Florida, as well as all kinds of maintenance and stuff like that. I'll leave links in the description for you. While you're here, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us out, but also it lets YouTube know that you like sailboat videos, so it'll show you more of them. How cool is that? And hit subscribe so that I can see you again next time.